Welcome to Heart of a Shepherd. We have two video devotionals for today. This first one will be taken from 1 Samuel chapter 12, and the second video will be taken from 1 Samuel chapter 13. Well, as we come to 1 Samuel chapter 12, it marks the end of Samuel's ministry, at least on a public stage, even though it continued on into the time of King David. But this is really the parting challenge and Samuel's resignation as the leader of Israel, Israel having chosen a king. Now, I do invite you to open your Bible with me to 1 Samuel chapter 12. Well, the Lord comforted Samuel and reassured him that the people's request for a king was not a rejection of him as their judge. Instead, it was a rejection of the Lord himself as Israel's king. Now, 1 Samuel 11 concluded with the people gathering before Samuel in Gilgal, where it was confirmed that Saul would be king, followed by sacrifices to the Lord. Now, notice, if you would, in the first 5 verses that Samuel declared his integrity. Now, 1 Samuel 12 continued then with the assembly at Gilgal, and it recorded the formal transfer of leadership in Israel from Samuel, the judge and the priest, to Saul, the king. Now, Samuel confirmed that he had obeyed the people's will and provided them with a king, chapter 12 and verse 1. He then stepped down from his role as the judge of the people. Now, our study in 1 Samuel has taken us from Samuel's birth and childhood to the point where he describes himself in chapter 12 and verse 2 as old and gray-headed. Now, in his old age, Samuel expressed a desire that should be true for all believers, and that is that our lives would serve as a testimony of faithfulness to the Lord and exhibit spiritual integrity before his people. Now, Samuel called on the nation then to affirm his life and ministry among them. He declared that he had not misused his office nor been prejudiced in his judgments. Indeed, he challenged the people to tell him where he had wronged them, verse 3, and said, "I will restore it to you." Then with one voice, the people affirmed Samuel's words, and they declared in verse 4, "Thou hast not defrauded us, nor oppressed us, neither hast thou taken aught of any man's hand." And as the people watched, Samuel called on the Lord to witness their words, and they answered, "He, the Lord, is witness." Verse 5. Samuel then, verse 6 through 13, declared the Lord's everlasting faithfulness. And so Samuel magnified the Lord, and he recounted God's faithfulness to Israel, beginning in Egypt, where he led them out of Egypt, through the Red Sea, through the wilderness, and in finally conquering Canaan. Samuel reminded the people that it was their sins and disobedience that caused the Lord to raise adversaries whom he used to afflict them and turn their hearts back to him. He also reminded the people that when they cried out to the Lord and confessed their sins, he, the Lord, sent judges to deliver them, verse 10 and 11. However, despite all this, the people had rejected the Lord in verse 12 and demanded a king. Samuel then reminded the people that choices have consequences. You'll notice that in verse 14 and 15. And so the old prophet then declared, and I quote, "Behold the king whom ye have chosen, and whom ye have desired, and behold, the Lord hath set a king over you." Verse 13. Samuel then warned, however, that a king would not save them from their enemies or keep them as a nation. Only if they feared, served, and obeyed the Lord would they be assured of God's blessings. He then gave a clear warning that if the nation rebelled, the hand of the Lord would be against them, as it was against their fathers. Verse 15. Now, in verse 16 through 19, we have where Samuel then called upon the Lord to reveal himself. And so when Samuel called on the Lord sent unseasonable rain and thunder, since the wheat harvest occurs during the dry season, and he reminded the nation of how they had rebelled and demanded a king. In verse 19, fearing the Lord and Samuel, the people admitted they had committed great wickedness in demanding a king. And Samuel then exhorted the nation to be faithful. If you'll notice then, beginning in verse 20 through verse 25, and particularly verse 14, Samuel urged the nation, fear the Lord. Serve him in truth with all your heart. But if ye shall do wickedly, ye shall be consumed, both ye and your king. Now, we will stop there, follow the next video, and it will introduce 1 Samuel chapter 13 and the continuing of Samuel's word to Israel as a nation. God bless, and bye-bye.